this film is going to upset the right people, the anti-Disney woke people, even though I don't think it's actually woke, or certainly not woke enough, despite what you may think. Hi and welcome to Walking Movies. I am Nick, and this is not what I was expecting to be doing on a Friday night. I had planned, as I always do, to go and see a film and give you my quick thoughts once it came out of the cinema. I didn't have time to, but also I was taken aback by what I'd seen. And so rather than just do it on the fly, I thought I'd wanted to record a video when I got home and kind of talk you through my thoughts and feelings about Disney Snow White, because it's not what I expected it to be. So look, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was Walt Disney's first feature-length animation. It changed the game, it changed the world. It's the first time it'd been done. You know, it's rightly seen as a classic because it is. It was the first time. And people love the songs and the characters and, you know, everything. So it's a very beloved film. And then they announced, probably about 8 or 9 years ago at this point, that they wanted to do a live action version. This was at the time when Disney had just started to kind of get into the live action remake thing that they've been doing for a long time now. And then they announced the casting. And then they announced the start of filming. Then they announced the start of reshoots, because this film needed reshoots. And just to be, you know, for those that may not know, reshoots on films is very common, especially like big blockbuster films. That is quite a common thing to do. But there'd been a huge gap from when they filmed it to when they did the reshoots, and people weren't exactly sure why. This film has had its fair amount of controversy. So I want to break all that down and give you my thoughts on why I thought I was going to be walking into an absolute abomination of a film and left really enjoying it and being very surprised at how much I enjoyed it. So look, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it was the first film I ever saw at the cinema. They re-released it in 1987, I think. So I was about 3 or 4. And I remember it. I remember going to the cinema and seeing it. I didn't watch the whole film. I fell asleep. That bit I don't remember. But yeah, it had come out in the 80s. Disney used to re-release a lot of their films at the cinema before you could buy them on VHS, before you could watch them on streaming whenever you wanted to. You know, in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, this is just something that they did. They re-released films at the cinema so people could get the chance to see them that wouldn't otherwise get the chance to. So that was my first exposure to Snow White. I enjoyed it for what I can remember, but when I watched it later on as a kid, I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favourite by any stretch, but there were things I liked about it, and I liked the characters and some of the songs and whatnot. So I guess what I'm saying is that I wasn't particularly precious about this film being turned into a live action remake, other than the fact it had that history with it. It was the first one, the first feature-length animated film, and, you know, to some people, sacrilegious to you know, touch it. Now, Disney likes to do remakes, live action remakes. I've talked about this on various platforms before. My thing is, I don't like them necessarily. Like, I wish there were less of them, but I also understand why they do them, especially with films like this, because the original films now are so old that, you know, kids are not watching them. They're not being exposed to them. They're rewatching Moana and Toy Story and Frozen ad infinitum, but they're not going back and watching all the back catalogue. So if you're doing a live action remake, it gives people an excuse to go and check out that film. The other thing it does, of course, is, so in some cases, it extends the copyright a little bit, but that's another discussion for another day. So when they announced this, I wasn't too fussed about it in any way, right? When I saw the first trailer for it, maybe it was the first, maybe the second, I don't know. When I saw a trailer for this last year, I was concerned. I thought this does not look good at all. Disney do have a habit of making really, really bad trailers for their films. I don't know why. But this one in particular, just so many issues. I was not looking forward to it. And the reason I went to see this film today was not because I was desperate to go and see it. As you can see from my finger, I donated some blood today. A good thing to do if you don't do it yourself. Donate blood where you can, people. But I was donating blood today. I'd had it booked in for like months. It just happened to be today. And where they were setting up for the day to do the blood donations was right across from my local cinema. So I thought, I'll kill two birds. I'll go out a little bit early, go and see a film, timed it to the film finish just before my appointment time, and I could go and donate my blood. So that was it. I was not desperate to see this film. I was not looking forward to see this film, really, because I didn't think it was going to be very good. They had the premiere earlier this week, and with premieres, like, the reviews were pretty good from what I can see. I didn't read any reviews, but people were talking positive about the film, and I thought, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Then the critics' review started to come out last night, as I recall this, and I saw a few one-star reviews and people saying like how bad it was. I was like, okay, this is more what I was expecting to hear. Okay, so I still haven't read any reviews, so I don't know what people's issues are with the film, but I knew that it had had a very positive response from the premiere of it, but a pretty bad one as this has kind of like gone on and it's had its actual release. So my expectations were low. And like I said, I was really, really pleasantly surprised. And there are controversies. So let's look into those controversies because I'm not sure which one is the most prevalent, but let's see. The reimagining of the Seven Dwarfs is probably the one that kicks up a stink. Actually, no, it would have been the main cast, but I've already said it, so let's go for it. So the Seven Dwarfs. There's obviously been different adaptations of Snow White and different interpretations of Snow White. And the Seven Dwarfs are normally in those stories because they are characters that are in the original fairy tale. So you expect to see them. There has been definitely talk over the years about, is it PC to have dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? That has been a conversation that's happened because, and I can't speak on behalf of short actors, so I don't have a real opinion here. I can just tell you what has been said there. Some short actors really hate the fact that the Seven Dwarfs are such a kind of iconic pop culture set of characters because they feel that it's very stereotypical. They get typecast in those kind of roles rather than being given, regular acting roles. They feel that the main roles they're going to get as an actor of a certain height is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Same with like things like pantomimes. On the other end, you've got people that want to celebrate it and see it as an opportunity for actors that don't get, as regular acting jobs as other actors, kind of like a steady kind of, opportunity. Because, again, so many different versions of this story. Peter Dinklage, who is one of the most famous actors with dwarfism, when this was announced, came out and said that he didn't agree that Disney were doing this remake. It says he dismissed it as a backward story and what that did was it made Disney then rethink what they were going to do. So originally it was going to be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then they decided we're not going to go down that path. The problem is that by Peter Dinklage saying that, he was then taking the jobs away from other people. That's the problem. And, you know, what gives him the right to kind of like dictate that to, you know, a whole community of people, his peers? So, yeah, it didn't go down very well. And it is what it is. But Disney made the choice not to have them. And when you're in a world where you're trying to be a bit more politically correct, I can kind of understand why they'd want to do that. But I wasn't completely taken. I wasn't that bothered by it, but I could see why people were. When the trailer came out, when the first trailer came out and we saw the Seven Dwarves in this film and these really exaggerated cartoon characters, it looked really bad. It looked really bad. And you could argue in the finished film, they still look really bad. And this is where we're going to get into spoiler territory, right? So just to warn you, if you want to see this film without spoilers, then stop it right now. But in this film, they are mythical creatures. And that is why they look so different to everyone else in the film. Because they're mythical creatures. When they kind of explain that in the film, I was like, okay, it now makes sense, especially because there are actors in this film with dwarfism. So, and I believe that's the correct term. If I misspoke, I apologise. So yeah, so there are still actors in the film, but the characters of the dwarves are no longer dwarves. They are mythical creatures, and that works for me. I get it. I understand the change. It doesn't change my enjoyment of the film one little bit. That is something I can completely get behind. There was more controversy about the casting of those roles than what they did, because there was it Snow White and Huntsman, or was it Mirror Mirror? There was one, and I'm not going to bother looking it up because I don't care enough about this subject, but there was a film not that long ago where I think it might have been Snow White and Huntsman, but anyway, where they had actors, regular size actors, kind of film their roles and then, you know, manipulated in post-production to be dwarves. Again, taking the roles away from actual actors that could do that, that have that as part of their life. So that's where I stand there. I think in the end it was a really good decision. I think it was smart in regards to making the change and making it work for the story. I wish that in some ways they had the Seven Dwarfs, but only if they would have cast it correctly. And I think Peter Dinklage, you know, owes people an apology for that. Not me, the community affected, because, you know, he essentially took jobs away from working actors, and that's not cool. Okay, the casting of Snow White, of course it was controversial, because that's the world we live in. It's controversial. Everything's got to be controversial if it's not the same as it was before. But anyway, Rachel Zegler is a Latina actress. Snow White in the Disney film was very white, to the point where that was one of the things. Her name was Snow White because her skin was as white as snow, right? That's one of the lines in the film. Personally, I didn't care who they cast in this film. I just want whoever they do cast in this role to do a good job. They need someone who can act and sing and look the part. And she does. I think she did. I mean, I will tell you, I thought she did an amazing job. I thought she was really good in this role. I've not really seen her in very much. I still never got around to watching West Side Story. I do mean to. But I thought she was great. I thought she was really good. Her singing voice was on point. I thought her acting was good. She did a great job as Snow White. It's very clear how they would have seen her audition and gone, that's the person we want. And again, people were getting upset because of the ethnicity of the actress. this is again where another change comes into the film. Very early on, they explain how Snow White gets her name, and it's to do with a snowstorm happening on the day that she was born. And so, in tribute to that, they called her Snow White. That's it. That's the reasoning. And again, it's fine. Who cares? You know, there was the same controversy when people were getting up in arms because, you know, Hailey Bailey was cast as the Little Mermaid. And I honestly saw someone in response to that say, but mermaids aren't black. Just think about that for a second. Mermaids aren't black. So again, I didn't see that as an issue. Now I've seen the film, I don't know who else could have done as good a job as she did. She was fantastic, absolutely deserving of the role, and that's what's important for me at the end of the day when watching a film, is the performance of the person. Is it the right person? And if you have had to change a character's race or even gender, whatever it might be, to have the right person do it, I'm good with that. I'm there to watch something and be entertained. She did a great job. She doesn't deserve the Irie. But something else that she did was she did criticise the original film, especially about the storyline between the prince and Snow White, and essentially how it's suggested to be a love story, and that the prince essentially stalks her throughout, and then obviously gives a true love's kiss without consent, all that stuff. And so she was saying that this was going to be a more PC version of the story. I get that. I understand it. I understand what she was saying. I think she worded it badly. She worded it worse than I just have, right? So again, I think people use that as an excuse to then like kind of dogpile or justify why it was the wrong casting. I think it was sloppy. I don't think it was that bad. It's valid. The original film is 90 years old, over 90 years old. It is out of date. It is out of date. Because it was different times. I don't see there's any problem with that. So, you know, I'm fine. I'm fine. I think it was silly. She should have done it. She did. She could have said it better. It's not a big deal. And in the last controversy, and this one is a bit more of an issue, and that is the fact that both Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler are both on different sides of the current conflict that's happening in Israel and Palestine between the two countries. For those that don't know, Gal Gadot was actually in the IDF, Israeli actress, but before she became an actress, she was in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. And Rachel Zegler has been quite vocal about her desire for Palestine to be free. And so both sides of that argument are throwing shade at the other one. Both fans on different sides. And the actresses themselves, they don't get on. I don't think they got on particularly well during filming. And they certainly are not friends now, post-filming. So it is what it is. But yeah, that's another issue that came up, was because of their political views and how different they were. So that's the controversies out of the way. So the film itself, let's go and have a look at the film. So as I said, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was really good. When it first started, it starts off with a new song. There are a few new songs in this film, and these have been written by Benj Pasek, I'm not sure, and Justin Paul, who, not their first thing, but they're the thing that kind of like broke them through to the mainstream, really, was probably The Greatest Showman, writing the songs of The Greatest Showman. They've written new songs for this film, and they've also, hang on, let me just double check. It says they're not credited as writers. I was going to say, there's been some amendments to some of the songs in the original Snow White film, but it doesn't say that they're not listed as writers on it. So that suggests to me that they didn't change too many words. There's one notable song that's not in this film, and that is Someday My Prince Will Come, and that's because there isn't a prince in this film. There is a story with a character that's like a prince, but he's not the prince. So just to be clear on that. So yeah, when the film starts off, you have this opening number, which is one of the new songs they wrote for this film, called Good Things Grow. The song is fine. I wasn't completely blown away by it, but I wasn't offended at the same time. I guess the big number in the film is Waiting on a Wish. It's a solo by Snow White. Very nice song. Like, I thought it was good. Gal Gadot gets a song in here as well. But yeah, obviously the main amount of songs are being sung by Rachel Zegler, who does a grand job. But the new songs, I think, work quite well. They feel modern, but they also feel like they fit in with the other songs. Like, I don't think they sound too contemporary, in my opinion. Like, when they did The Little Mermaid and Lin-Manuel Miranda had some songs, they stuck out like a sore thumb to me. I think these work really well. So yeah, I like the new songs. I think they're good. They're obviously good writers, and it is they put new songs in to pad time, and also because they can try and get nominated for Oscars. That's why they do it. But as I said, I quite like them. The story itself mainly unchanged. Like the bare bones are the same. There are a few differences outside of the ones that we've talked about, such as, said, there's no prince in this one, but there is a villager that she becomes friends with who is like an outlaw, and that's where the kind of like male lead character comes into play. But things like the huntsmen are still there, and obviously some people that work in mines, they're in the film as well. But I like the changes. I thought it was good. I thought they expanded on the story. And the one thing I will say when it comes to like live action remakes, because again, I'm not always a fan of them, but if you make them different enough to serve a purpose to exist, then I'm fine. And that's kind of where I stand on this. So I'm not saying I want more live action remakes, but if you're going to do them, make them significantly different to the original source material. Otherwise, what's the point? We just might as well do shot for shot remakes. So yeah, I've already said how much I like Rachel's casting. Gal Gadot is pretty much perfectly cast as well, because I think she is quite evil and heartless in real life. So I don't even know she was acting. Her line delivery is not great. She is who she is. Like, I don't think she's a great actress. I've never thought she was a great actress. She's had good performances, but I don't think she's a great actress by any accounts, and this will not change your opinion if you feel like that. She does the job she needs to do. She comes across as someone evil and heartless and ruthless, and that's what you get from the performance. The main kind of like male lead of Jonathan, this is something I didn't like. Not that I didn't like the character, or it's Andrew Burnap, who I wasn't familiar with, but he's an American actor. The character of Jonathan is, I think, supposed to be British, but he's also American, because at different times in the film, he's got a different accent. I don't know if that's because of reshoots or what. I'm not sure why it wasn't overdubbed, but it wasn't. Here we are. So his performance is pretty good, but his vocals are a bit all over the shop. So I noticed that. Maybe it's not a big deal, but I definitely was like thinking, hang on a second, I'm sure you weren't American earlier in the film. Correct me if I'm wrong. But look, as I said, I saw the trailer. It didn't look good. I didn't like the dwarves they had in the film, and I went in with very low expectations and came out of it thinking that I'd seen something really enjoyable. The story worked. Like, the extra bits that they added worked for me. The changes they made worked because they were explained, and they, again, made it seem that it was worth doing this version of it because it was different enough whilst keeping the right amount of nostalgia for the original, and key things like the Dark Forest. The Dark Forest sequence is relatively short, but is impactful as it was in the original cartoon with the trees and stuff. There's some really great, beautiful wide shots in this film as well, where you can kind of like see the kingdom being, lit up by the sun and the colours coming through, and it's really impressive. Like, there are bits in this film like that when I was like really kind of like surprised how beautiful it looked. So yeah, the acting for the most part is good, or especially the roles that matter. Those performances are good. Secondary ones, not so much. Not a big deal. The changes of the story worked for me. The things they did around the story just to kind of like make it different also worked for me. I liked them all. The new songs were good. They fitted in well with the old songs. And I just felt like it justified its existence. And that's really the best thing you can say when it comes to these kind of films. So it's a controversial film. I feel this might be a controversial take because, again, everything I've seen so far has probably been about 80-20 bad to good on the reviews. It'll be interesting to see what happens now, regular people are going to see the film, right? Not movie critics. Because they always see films differently to critics. So I'm hoping it does well. I don't think it will. I do see Disney losing money on this. I think it'll be a real shame. I think this will have a strong life on Disney Plus when it eventually comes on there. I think at the box office it might struggle, especially as there's only a couple of weeks before Minecraft comes out, which is obviously another big family film. And also, it's only 2 months away from Lilo and Stitch coming out, which is another live-action remake of one of my favourite animated films of all time. But I digress. As much as I'm looking forward to it, did I need it? No. Will I enjoy it? Hopefully. Trailer looks good. We'll see. But this is much better. If you saw the trailer and thought, this is not for me, then I get it. But I got a much better film than I was expecting based on the trailers. If what you've heard me talk about in the changes turns you off, I get it. And that is probably not going to change your mind. But for me, I could look at the two things as completely separately. The cartoon is still there if you want to go and watch the cartoon. That's never going away. That is there for you to enjoy. But this will hopefully bring that story to a new audience, and also will hopefully then inspire them to go and watch the original film if they haven't already. So I think this was a good thing. I think it was a good film. It was far, far better than it had any right to be. And because of that, it gets 3 out of 4 stars from me, which is a good score. It's a good score. And I even said to my wife when I came out, I said, you're not going to believe this. I really enjoyed it. And she didn't believe it. I said, no, it's true. It is really good. It'll be interesting to see what they think about the film when they eventually get to see it. They're in no rush, even though I've said it's good. But they will see it eventually. And, I hope you do as well. If you're on the fence, I hope this might kind of sway you to maybe give it an opportunity. And just because I've really enjoyed it doesn't mean that you are. I completely get that. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion. But this is the opinion of somebody who thought they were going to see a terrible movie today and end up really enjoying it. If this is your first time seeing my content, thank you so much. I've got a separate YouTube channel now, so please click on the link at the end of this and subscribe to that if you haven't already. And, thank you. Until next time, remember that Flynn lives.